raised in different countries in East Africa for 13 years of my life. That's a pretty long time for a 17-year-old, so I can safely say that I grew up in Africa. I experienced Africa's rich diversity, from the Arabs in the north to the Zulus and whites in the south. And Africa is not a country, it's a continent, just to clear that up for anyone who doesn't own a map. As someone who is lucky enough to get the opportunity to travel to many different countries in the world, I became aware of the negative connotations that came with being an African and how Africa was portrayed from a very young age. Which leads me to this talk today. The only thing dark about Africa is your ignorance. This was said by Monu Kotone, a world peace activist. This is a very important quote because for a very long time, very little was known about Africa, about its people, its ways, its customs, and history. So it acquired the name the Dark Continent throughout the years because it was a mysterious place for Europeans. Little did they know that the Chinese and Arabs had been trading with the African continent since the 1st century. Now, this quote really struck out for me because since I was young, I never understood why everyone was so disgusted or felt the need to sympathize when they heard the word Africa. But when I thought of Africa, I thought of the Nubian princesses, the bright colored clothing, the food that would make your mouth water just by thinking about it. And most of all, the laughter ringing through the houses. That is what I think when I hear Africa. Home, love, laughter. So as I grew up, I got accustomed to people asking me questions such as, do you have like lions rolling around in your backyard? Are they your pets? Or do you jump on vines to get to school? But my favorite one so far has been, why do you speak such good English? Which I then always answer with, because the British colonized us. I speak my colonizer's language better than my mother tongue. And this goes for many other children who have been brought up in post-colonization. But as I got older, I started to ask myself why people thought this. What made people have such a negative imprinted image in their brain of how Africa is? It surely isn't their fault if they've never been. So that's when I started to notice the way media represented us as a continent. An example is Band-Aid's 30, Do They Know It's Christmas? This was sung by multiple chart-topping British artists to help tackle the Ebola crisis that broke out a couple years back. This song contained lyrics such as, there is no peace and joy in West Africa this Christmas, where a kiss of love can kill you and there's death in every tear, and the Christmas bells that ring, there are clanging chimes of doom. This not only displays a condescending tone, but it gives the audience the assumption that Africa is a place of anguish. So by having content like this being aired nationwide or worldwide over and over again only perpetuates the stereotypes against Africa. However, one artist stood up, Fuzo DJ. Fuzo DJ is an English musician of Ghanaian descent, and he turned down the opportunity to be in the Band-Aid's 30, Do They Know It's Christmas? Because he simply did not agree with the lyrics in the song and believed that it showed a misrepresentation of Africa. And because of situations such as this, he created the Tina movement. This is the new Africa, in which he's empowering individuals to shed a positive light on Africa, to shed light on our booming economies, our massive job growth, and on our improving infrastructure that you see across the continent. Because you won't hear about the Kenyan boy who invented a machine to scare away lions from his village so they don't attack his livestock, but instead you'll hear about the boy who can't go to school because he's taking care of his family. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we need to be hush-hush on these topics, but every country has its own struggles to overcome. However, the struggles of African countries are magnified. We are more than just diseases, corruption, and poverty. We as a continent offer much more with our blend of cultures. Which leads me to this next point. All Africans are not black, and all blacks are not Africans. Some may disagree and say that the African identity is just the borders in which shape our continent. Some will say that the African identity is just solely dependent on racial factors. But I disagree. Being African isn't measured by the level of melanin in your skin. It is not measured by how thick your lips and thighs are, and it is not measured by the texture of your hair. I say this because I myself am a fourth-generation Kenyan from Yemeni descent. So my nationality is Kenyan, but my ethnicity is Arab. I am obviously not a native African, but I still identify myself as an African. And some say that I'm not a true representation of an African. However, throughout the years, Africa has evolved into one of the most multiracial and multicultural places. And so the only thing dark about Africa is your ignorance. Thank you.